The Sentencing Act that has just been passed, the Sentencing Act 2026, does address more serious crimes, which are covered by the very snappily named Section 244ZA of the Criminal Justice Act 2003, right? These offences include rape, manslaughter, penetrative, forced penetration, and sex with children under the age of 13. And these are the level just below where you get life. You could get life, but in these cases, if you've been given a sentence of at least 4 years for one of these sentences, a determinate sentence, then the Sentencing Act, which recently passed, will reduce the time you serve from 2/3 to half. Now, what do you think about that?
Well, you see, I expressed my view on television, I'm afraid, that I feel very strongly that if governments of whatever complexion are going to have policies about trying to confront violence against women and girls, sexual violence against people, and the whole business of sexual assaults on children and abuse of children, then you have to hold the line. There are some things that are egregious, and it's not just murder. And I think those things stay with people all their lives. The damage that is done with them is as bad as cutting off a limb. So I felt very strongly that I thought Andy Burnham was absolutely right to say, I'm not going to let it relate to grooming gangs, paedophilia, or sexual violence of women and girls. And so, rape. I think he was right. I thought he was also right to say, I'm not going to run
he's
at.
Right. So he's right that they should stay at 2/3.
I think so. I do think so.
If you've got a 7-year sentence for rape, you do 2/3. Whereas the Sentencing Act would have reduced that to 50%. Now, what about Jessie Cole and Albert Byers, who they weren't the driver. They were sentenced. They were convicted of manslaughter, given 13 years. They were given the sentence in July 2020. Their release date under the 2/3 rule would be August 2028. If the Sentencing Act is applied to them, they get out now because they've served more than half of their sentence. What do you say about that?
To let them out now is too soon. And I think that what I feel about this is that manslaughter is not murder, and you have to try and explain to people. Sometimes you hear people talking and you can tell that they don't know the difference. Yes, they were involved in the death, a terrible death of a young policeman who was doing public service for all the rest of us, trying to keep our society free of crime and to protect communities. So it was in the midst of a crime that he lost his life doing his job. And so I feel that the killing of a police officer in those circumstances, which fall short of murder, it wasn't deliberate, we want to kill a policeman. It wasn't like that. It wasn't taking a gun and shooting at somebody. And the judge said that there wasn't evidence to say that they knew that he was being dragged along behind, that there wasn't definite evidence of that in relation to all three. Well, that does change the nature of the crime, however horrifying the consequences. This young man, newly married, and the terrible consequences for him, his mother, his family, and I share their sense of grief. I also think that when something's been done to a policeman, and we're still trying to recruit policemen, and we're still trying to say the respect within our society for people who are doing those kind of jobs has to be maintained, then I think it was a mistake to make a distinction between the driver and the passengers, although they were underage at the time.
The driver was given an extended sentence. He had form, and he was regarded.
The distinction was made because of the feeling that you're in control if you're the driver.
Just bear with me, just while I ask you this question. This is just a numbers problem. You're trying to run the Ministry of Justice. You've got full prisons. You've got to free up some space, okay? But Cole and Bowers will have done, if they're released on the 1st of October, over 7 years. They'll be let off 18 months. Do they really need to stay inside for another 18 months? Have they not suffered sufficient retribution and punishment? That's my question.
The thing is that it had been a while since we had a case of a killing of a policeman in the course of his duty. I can't remember there was a young woman police officer who was killed up in Yorkshire, as I remember, and then there was the terrible business in here in London, up in Tottenham, of a police officer being killed. And I think that the killing of a police officer takes on particular significance, and so I think that you have to signal that it is different.